Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. Good day. For me, it's good afternoon. My name is Judith Gulpers, and I work with Lilian van der Linde on ORCID in our library. We call ourselves the Erasmus Library ORCID team. And I want to tell something about our university very shortly. Uh, Explain about our rollout project that was already 5 years ago, and the current ORCID support that we offer. And I wanted to end with two tips that we think are very useful. Our university has currently 9 schools or faculties, as they also sometimes call themselves. And our university was founded by entrepreneurs from the city of Rotterdam, from the harbor. And they needed people who knew about business, about economics, about law. And later, social sciences and philosophy, history, arts were added as schools. And also, the Erasmus Medical Center is one of our current schools. That means that we don't have a science or technology department. We have over 7,000 researchers. That's based on pure, and it's a bit skewed because it also includes some people who are lecturers or visiting researchers. We are a member of the ORCID NL consortium, which is a collaboration between ORCID members in the Netherlands, and it's chaired by SURF. And they had a national ORCID campaign a couple of years ago, but our university was not part of that campaign because we weren't using a pure the CRIS system then, and that was useful in their campaign. But now we are able to use Pure. So that was introduced in 2021. And since August, our researchers can create a connection with ORCID. And then the source is called AUR and Erasmus MC Research Information Portal. So that's the trust marker. So in July 2020, we started our local ORCID rollout project. You can imagine that was not an ideal time for a project like this. But I think we were able to do a lot. And we had a small project team with 4 people in the library, and one of them was a trainee. We were very happy to have her. She was added to the library staff for a year, and this ORCID rollout project was one of the projects that she worked on. And that's really helpful to have these extra hands. The rollout was organized per school, and especially we focus on sending emails to researchers by the research directors. And that had a practical reason. We weren't allowed to send the emails ourselves because there are lists and we don't have access to them. But having the emails sent by a research director also shows that they support this ORCID project, and that it's not something the library wants researchers to do, but that it has added value for them. We organized workshops, so general ones or specific ones for specific groups of researchers, for example, PhD candidates of a particular school. But a lot of time went to the ORCID Madness Month. And that was the name for a campaign for one specific institute, Erasmus Research Institute of Management. And they chose ORCID to be the topic of their open science campaign in spring 2021. And we did a lot of coffee clinics. So that were short 15 minutes webinars about very specific topics, like how to add publications to your ORCID record using Scopus, or how to add your ORCID ID to the data repository that we have, that is Figshare. So they were really focused small topics for one coffee or tea break. I've included the link in the presentation, but it's really amazing how outdated they already are because a lot of things changed in user interfaces. So keep that in mind. And it was really madness also because ARM sent an email every working day. So a lot of researchers opted out from that email exchange. During the project, we used the time also to develop services and tools. One is, for example, infographics, and that's what our trainee was really good at. So it's an example of things that we could hand out to people. We added an information page on our library website to show that our library is offering ORCID support. but there was not a lot of room for practical issues. So for that, we created a LibGuides, the ORCID LibGuides, with very specific information about how to add peer review activities or how to give cross-ref permission to add publications to your record. Researchers could also book an individual appointment with us. So we had an agenda with hours per week, but I think I personally only had 2 appointments in that whole time frame. So that was a service that was not used a lot. And we also created internal guidelines for our individual support. So what we can offer to researchers. For example, when we are a trusted individual, what can we do and what can't we do? And one of the things that we struggled with was how to show the success of the project. So because we wanted hopefully to show that the number of ORCID IDs for our university grew, but we couldn't use Pure as a source for that. So we had to find a workaround, and we got a list from human resources with names of researchers, and then we had to match that with what we can find in the ORCID registry. And it was quite a lot of work, but we found out that we got a 47% match of researcher names. Of course, there might be some mismatch, but we were really happy with that number. And as you probably know from your own university or school, there are quite big differences between schools because the way researchers encounter ORCID differ. So for us, law was the lowest, but we could see that our ORCID Madness Month was a success because management had the highest number of matches, 63%. So currently, the Erasmus Library ORCID team is 2 people, Lilian and me, and we do this. It's not our full-time job. We do it next to other work. I think I spent 1 day a month on this, on ORCID. We kept the monthly workshops online and offline, but participation is really low. And we offer them now, and we offer them also on request, so for a specific school. And for me, what's really nice is that it's also part of workshops that we give for the graduate school. So for PhD candidates, they can follow a workshop on visibility, where ORCID is really a key topic, but also in the workshop on how to get my article published, I'm allowed to talk about ORCID. And last year we offered a new service, that's the ORCID Quick Scan. And the idea is that a researcher can send their ORCID ID, and then we can give personal recommendations on how to add publications to their record. And we were hoping to reach researchers with a more or less empty ORCID record. But for now, most requests are from senior researchers with already a lot of information in their record. So that's sometimes quite a lot of work to find that extra thing that we can add. We also try to make use of all newsletters that are available regarding research services or in the schools to announce new features that ORCID offers. For example, when ORCID introduced new work types or the verified email domains. So we try to be visible and hope that a researcher thinks, oh yeah, ORCID, I should do something with that. I have to spend some time doing that. And now that we have Pure, we can get ORCID statistics really easy. And one place is that we share them in the library report that we prepare for annual meetings with each school. And we show the number of ORCID IDs in Pure, connected ORCID IDs, and also for all job titles and senior researchers only. And this is really nice because we have these talks every year, and there's always 1 or 2 faculties that want to follow up. So that can be a workshop or an extra email or something like that. So that also spreads the work a bit. And just to show you, this is what we show for statistics. We had a little drop in last quarter because I changed the counting method of connected ORCID IDs. And last, our tips. We learned a lot from becoming a trusted individual. So we had some researchers who wanted our help, and then we thought maybe we can ask if we can be a trusted individual, because then we can see what a researcher sees and can do in ORCID, because we are not researchers ourselves, so we have to. This was a nice workaround. And also, there are a lot of people within our university that can be an ally. For example, the Pure team, in our case, the data stewards, the data curators, my colleague faculty liaisons, our library management. It's really nice, important for us that they know what ORCID is and that they know where to make links. For example, our open access book fund, having an ORCID ID is one of the conditions. But also our library director talks to people from HR and then make a link to maybe add ORCID already on the onboarding of new researchers. And that's something we are developing now. So these are my tips.
Thank you, Judith. Lots of good comments in the chat, especially mentioning how great of an idea the ORCID Quick Scan is. Happy to hand it over now to Virginie Lang. Virginie? I believe you're muted. Perfect.
Hi everyone. I will talk to you about ORCID at Université de Lorraine. I'm Virginie Lang and I work in the Libraries department in the research support team. For our ORCID integration, we made a custom development in the university information system with ORCID API. The context in France is we have a national open archive repository called AL, and there is a link between AL and ORCID that allows you to export list of publications from AL to ORCID or import from ORCID. We also have a national strategy for the adoption of PID, and we have an ORCID France consortium. At Université de Lorraine, this is one of the biggest French multidisciplinary university. We have a strong open science strategy. We have a working group about data quality together with different departments of the university. As librarians, we carry out works on PIDs. I've made a report that is an overview of PID in the research and documentation tools. We try to improve our authors and organizations' PID. And in the database OpenAlex, we clean up works associated with our war ID. For the calendar of implementation, that was first brainstorming that led to a political memo, then meetings between librarians and IT people that led to a technical memo, then the period of development, implementation, tests, and the launch was just 4 months ago. Now, how does it work? The future is available for all staff, researchers, engineers, administratives, PhD students. You have to click on the ORCID URL button, log in your ORCID or create one, authorize connection with your ORCID, and URL becomes a trusted party and get your ORCID number. At the same time, affiliation, trusted affiliation appear on your ORCID. These are the university affiliation and the research unit affiliation. Now, I want to talk to you about communication and training. For the launch, it was first an article in the newsletter of the university and an email from the vice president for research unit directors, scientific cluster directors, and administrative managers, and later presentation in different councils. I decided to make presentations in the research units and the scientific clusters. So I'm on tour for ORCID, for webinars or on-site presentations, mostly during General Assembly. And I try as much as possible to customize my presentation. I mean, I never do the same presentation depending on the audience, researchers or managers, and depending on the disciplines, because they don't have the same needs and the same practices. We have 60 research units and 10 clusters, so there's a lot to do. And I try as much as possible to have the relay within the research units. For training and support, we have trainings for PhD students for a few years. I have webinars for researchers proposed every month. And I think it's also very important to offer personal support. So offer on-demand meeting about your researcher identity and ORCID, and email assistance. I've designed a fact sheet in French, a very short how-to fact sheet, how to authorize the links ORCID Crossref, ORCID Datasite, and ORCID AL to add your works on your ORCID profile. And then we try to monitor with the member portal. This is very easy to see how many ORCID are connected to our university. And I can also have the list of ORCID profiles linked in each research unit. So that's useful to send back to research unit directors. And for all that, I have contacts with the ORCID support and technical team that is very helpful. Thanks to Jordan. Now about other developments. We would like to be able to add a world title, to add a start date to affiliations pushed, to add an aim date, and to automatize these updates. Another idea is to put a little bit of ORCID everywhere. ORCID will be made visible in the staff directory. ORCID will be required in other university project proposals. We can display information from ORCID profile on the personal web pages, and ORCID as a login in applications. We also want to consider other incentives, mailing to researchers who don't have connected yet their ORCID, and make ORCID mandatory for new researchers and for doctoral students. Now, my last slide is about offer different services and take advantage of the information transfer. We want to develop the push-pull information to and from ORCID, for example, to add project, PhD service on ORCID profiles, and on the other hand, to reuse information from ORCID in our information system and in a European information system. In France, it would be great to have these developments also to be able to add automatically publications, datasets, fundings to ORCID profiles. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginie. We're seeing, again, a lot of comments in the chat, and I'd love to hear more about your researcher awareness webinars when we get to the Q&A. Now I'm happy to hand it over to Marie and Ellen of Stellenbosch University.
Yes. Thank you very much, Kimberly, and also for the two colleagues for their presentation. And I want to say, even though, as you will hear now, we've been involved in ORCID for a decade, exactly a decade this year, I have already learned so much and got so many ideas from the two of you. So from our side, we're just going to touch on the Marie, next screen. Yeah, so we're going to say a little bit about why ORCID, a little bit about ORCID in South Africa, and then specifically ORCID at Stellenbosch University, our implementation journey, and also a little bit about advocacy training and community outreach sessions. So why ORCID at Stellenbosch University? So also a little bit about the university, one of the top research intensive university, public university in South Africa. We have our research output is around, for the last number of years, around 4,000 plus articles, which is one of the highest in the country. We started our conversation with ORCID already in the mid-2014. And that was when Laurel Hawk, the ED of ORCID, then visited South Africa, and she actually presented at our Library Research Week seminar. We then developed a project plan as one of our library strategic initiatives in 2025. And we specifically, our objective there was to implement a unique researcher identifier system, ORCID, to accurately link researchers with their research outputs and to further enhance the visibility of researchers. And the outcome that we set to ourselves is that we want to address the author name ambiguity problem in scholarly communication at SU, and to provide one central service that links with other research identifiers. So we signed up then as basic membership, institutional membership at the time, in late 2014, and also at that time already approximately 300 researchers already had an ORCID ID. We also, it was a collaborative process. The library led this. We've also made the funding available, and we registered the project with the central IT division to assist with the technical implementation. And as such, we were also one of the first adopters of ORCID in South Africa. And now over to Marie.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. So if we look at ORCID in South Africa, firstly here, we have an ORCID consortium since 2017, and it is managed by TENET, South Africa's Research and Education Network, and they make available each year for us these stats that's very helpful to compare the different universities and institutions with each other. So this was updated in August 2024. And you can see here on the left-hand side is the Stellenbosch University column. And up to 2019, we were quite at the top there, but we're not the largest university in the country. So, of course, the others then started to, but that just shows that we were very early adopters in South Africa. So then if we look at ORCID at Stellenbosch University, we will talk briefly about the integrations, a timeline and statistics of adoption. So the integrations we have are these 4, and it's the first one that is an integration that connects users to the SU identity. The second one is with Sun Journals. It's an open journal system platform. And then the third one is Sun Scholar, the institutional repository on DSpace. It's a DSpace integration. And then lastly, Symplectic Elements that was launched end of last year by the Division for Research Development. So this is just a bit of a timeline in with a summary of a timeline, but I'm going to jump right into each one of those to say a bit more of with each of them. So with mid-2014, as Enden had indicated already, we started the discussions with ORCID and became a member in late 2014. And then in 2015, the actual planning started to really implement ORCID and with launcher integration. And so the implementation team was created and the implementation plan and timeline for development. And Laurel Haag visited us, and as Ellen mentioned, she did the talk then at one of our library research weeks that we had in 2015. So in 2016, the user rollout took place, and this was by direct communication and lots of advocacy and training took place. I will show you examples just now. News items, brochures, the library guide, where the link to the integration is also situated, workshops, visits to faculty board meetings. That was very helpful to get the word out. And then, of course, we monitored and communicated the uptake to all stakeholders on a regular basis. Our faculty librarians stood throughout and still are with assisting a lot with getting this integration with more numbers to it. So they communicate directly to the faculties. And yeah, like we will show later on as well, is that we attend and present at ORCID workshops with our national ORCID workshops in the country. And then in 2017, of course, we joined the ORCID Consortium. It's very helpful for all institutions in South Africa. We actively participate in these events, such as the workshops held every year and online coffee sessions that they offer for us to share our experiences with each other. 2023 was then the launch of DSpace integration. I don't have much more to say about that now, but then in 2024, the end of last or mid to last year, the Symplectic Elements integration was launched by the Division for Research Development. It's a researcher information system, and we served on the implementation team. Just to show some statistics of the uptake from 2015 onwards, the yearly counts of how many ORCID IDs with a Sun email address, that's the only way to trace those, up to May 2025 now, actually, these numbers, and 2,249 had connected their IDs to the Stellenbosch University main integration. Now, this is not that bad because we focus our marketing here on academic staff, so that we just make sure all academic staff are on this integration. And this is just to show the numbers for each of these 3 integrations. You can see the DSpace one started out in 23 and the Symplectic Elements in 2024. Hopefully that will still grow much in this year. So we hope for that. Now a bit more about advocacy and training. So the early days, lots of printed matter. Now not that much anymore. We have a newsletter that goes out each month directly to about 15,000 plus staff members and students. So that's direct emails, which is always the best. Then we have a workshop as part of the Smart Researcher workshop series, and we do other training for groups as on request, and we need it one-on-one as well when needed. And another example is workshops requested by the postdoctoral office on a yearly basis from last year. Just to flip through some examples, social media, our attendance at the research orientation days of the university, where we will promote all our research services such as ORCID, old brochure that we used at first, another old information sheet we used right at the beginning to show the users the steps in how to connect their ORCID IDs. These were email marketing campaigns where we used this type of infographic type of designs embedded in the emails to staff and students. And these days we focus a lot on the library research news blog and the newsletter associated with it. And this is, I think, really helpful. This was one of our last, one of the latest blog posts in April. We had a post on tips to optimize your ORCID record. Just some community outreach that we've been doing over the last 10 years, as Ellen said, a decade of ORCID at Stellenbosch. We've presented a few times at the ORCID South Africa workshop on our integration, and also some research that was done on how our researchers are populating their ORCID IDs. Then we had a poster at the Open Repositories Conference in 2020. This was an online poster because of COVID. And then one webinar participation at IFL, where we contributed to this webinar as well. And Ellen will end off now with some achievements that we thought.
Actually, we don't have time, so we have certainly taken the lead here. We've provided the budgets, and I can safely say, you've heard what we've done. Without the library, there would not have been an ORCID implementation at Stellenbosch University. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both. I'll invite the rest of our panelists to join us again as we get started for the Q&A. Firstly, thank you all for your wonderful presentations. I think we've all learned a lot, and I'm going to give our audience a few minutes to go ahead and formulate their questions and send them to the Q&A. I think each of you have mentioned that you do either workshops or webinars focusing on researchers. Can you share a little bit more about what content it is that you are presenting to them?
Okay, if I can go first, my sound is still on. With the content is really focused on an overview of what ORCID is, what it can do for you, the advantages, how to connect your ORCID ID to the integration. We also show the numbers of the uptake as to motivate with more people to join. We also focus on the symplectic elements from last year onwards, so that researchers are aware of that. Yeah, so it's basically an overview of everything that we can share. How to populate, a very important part is actually the population of the ORCID record, with how to add works focusing on crossref and data site, that type of thing. Yeah.
I think we also do that, and we also add a layer of ORCID as a persistent identifier and being part of a family of identifiers like DOI and ROR, and that's also something that we add. and we try to give some examples from our own university where name problems appear, so to show how things can go wrong.
The same, and also, for example, this morning I was in a research unit in history discipline, and I took example of ORCID accounts of colleagues that were in the audience, and also I use a sandbox profile that I adapt it to the audience to show different things. For example, in history, they can be sensitive to populate the ORCID with services such as be part of the a journal, member of the board of a journal, for example. So it's both with a PowerPoint and with ORCID profiles that I give examples.
Great, thank you all. And then continuing on the idea of outreach, someone is asking, they are just getting started with an ORCID membership rollout. So for any of you, what was the most effective outreach thing that you did for getting faculty to integrate their ORCID with your institution?
So maybe, yeah, if I could answer here, it's perhaps not so much, and maybe the effectiveness not that much as in the beginning as sort of starting out, to basically say these are the benefits and explain the challenges with if you don't have an ORCID ID, and for researchers, and to make them aware that if you don't have a unique identifier, your research may be lost. It's not quite that visible, and it may impact actually, collaboration, even your performance assessments and things like that. So we did try to also tell the research why it is important for them and how it will benefit them. But I think another way that it later on helped, one was, of course, with the national policy guidelines in terms of the National Research Foundation, that there was a mandate to researchers. Universities were informed that all researchers should have an ORCID ID, and then lately it was also indicated that they actually do have to, must have an ORCID ID when they actually apply for grant funding. And the library also assisted with the communication, the highest level at the university, to basically inform all researchers that it is a requirement, and I noted some of the other universities also do that. So I think it becomes mandatory. If you know that you're only getting to get a grant, or if you can go quickly and see the benefits, then you would certainly, that it helped to get the message out.
I think at Erasmus University, it became easier when we had the integration with Pure. Because then you can tell people, oh, researchers, you have this ORCID ID, and then we can also, when you make a connection, there is some added value. Then we can already add your affiliation and your works, so that we had something to offer. And I think that was nicer than just saying, yeah, you need to have an ORCID ID. That's it.
Absolutely. And I do have some questions about integrations, but before we move on to that, there's two questions that kind of go hand in hand here. First, I was wondering if the speakers could comment on the value of increasing awareness by running trials in individual departments and then sharing the data with other departments. And then similarly, someone is also wondering, have you found any particularly relevant or useful ways to encourage ORCID adoption by social science researchers and educators? So do you have any techniques or campaigns that you've done to target specific departments within your universities?
And no, we haven't gone that route as far as I know of. um,
It's more difficult to convince in humanities because it's not direct adding publication from Crossref, for example. So we have to find a interesting thing to show them. For example, how can they valorize their different aspects of their profile? And for humanities, we have a link between our open archives and ORCID, so it's easy for them to transfer their publications.
I think in the Netherlands, some of the universities also did a lottery per department. And then people were asked to enter their ORCID ID, and then there was a lottery to win a prize. So that can also help to add more, get to know more ORCID IDs of your researchers. And I think we did one for law, but wasn't still, they didn't want to. I mean, it's not a social science, of course, but I think in some disciplines, you just don't encounter ORCID as often as in other disciplines. So I think in our university for social sciences, it's not such a big issue. Maybe they'll publish a lot in international journals.
Prizes are a great incentive, and I'll just add for all ORCID members, I do have ORCID swag. So if you'd ever like to, offer a prize for ORCID for signing up with ORCID and giving access to your university to your records, I'm happy to provide swag for that. I've got some fun stuff. So reach out to your engagement lead and we could talk about that. Focusing now not so much on departments, but what about education levels? Do you promote the use of ORCID to your bachelor and master's students? And if so, can they put their thesis into their profile as their work and have it verified by the university?
But at our university, it's not. We don't. I know there are some students who have an ORCID ID. We see that in the member portal, but they cannot make an integration with Pure because they're not in there. And also, we don't have an integration with our thesis repository.
Yeah, we do have an integration with us with our repository. So from 2023, they can use that, but it is basically open to everybody because lots of undergraduates or honor students in our case needs ORCID also to apply for funding and those type of things. So they are always on the list somewhere. Not a lot of them, but they do. Masters and doctoral, it will grow, but our marketing efforts are more related to the academic staff for the integration part, not for the rest of the advocation, but yeah.
Yes, maybe just to add, Kimberly, yes, as Marie said, in terms of the sort of who we're targeting in researchers. However, most of our training initiatives, specifically the training, it's basically attended mostly by our master's PhD and honor students. So for our library research week, as well as our smart researcher training programs that are mostly attended early career we're focusing on the early career researchers and academics, but then also mostly students and also postgraduate students. I noted your comment also about not certificates. What we have also implemented now a few years ago is that so again, this helps very much for students as well, specifically for students. If you attend more than 3 of our training sessions, and that includes some of the ORCID workshops and presentation, then you do get a certificate of attendance. And of course, you could use that for your CVs and so on. So that definitely helps for attending, but then also for them to learn that they can actually, the importance of having an ORCID ID from a very early, while you're still a student, and you don't have to wait until you become an academic, because it also contributes to the university research profile, of course, if it can be linked to the university. So the integration is also important there.
Absolutely.
Our master student, we don't speak about ORCID, but for PhD students, I think it's very important. We have courses for them and try to make it mandatory for PhD students. At the moment they deposit their thesis to file to fill their ORCID number. And we are not able now to certificate their PhD thesis, but it would be very useful to have trust markers on thesis, PhD completion. It should be possible at the French level. Because recruiters, when I speak to recruiters, researchers who make selections, they say, we are never sure of the information that is on ORCID profiles, except if there is a trust marker. So it should be really useful to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, because our next question, I think, is related to something you mentioned, Judith, in your presentation. From the first presentation, what exactly do you mean by being a trusted individual for researchers? Could you guys talk a little bit about what trust markers are?
Yeah, I'm not sure the trusted individual is related to trust markers per se, but as a researcher can give someone else with an ORCID record the option to log in as that person. So we tell researchers, if you want me to take over your ORCID record, then please, this is my ORCID record, and then they can add me as a trusted individual. And then in my ORCID record, I can log in as that person. And that means that what was really nice is then we can, for example, go to Scopus and add publications. But what we cannot do is a lot of that trust marker part, because I cannot log in into our pure system as that researcher. So that's something they still need to do themselves. But I think the trust markers in general are, yeah, I always say that's the green tick that says, oh, this information is added. So Erasmus University says this person works for us, or this Crossref says this is verified. This author published this article. And by the way, we're really happy that ORCID now introduced that you can end the trusted partnership, trusted individualship as a trusted individual, because we didn't know how to end it, because there is a moment that you say, okay, now we've done the work, but that's now included. So that's great.
And then we've talked a bit about the integrations that you all have with different systems, services, vendors. Can you all talk about how you decided to integrate with those or use those? Like, for example, why did you decide to integrate with Pure, Judith?
I think that's the only system we currently have that allows an integration. No, but we also think that it works two ways. it helps our researchers to populate their ORCID record. But in our case, it's only one way, so from pure to ORCID, and not the other way around. Yeah, I think it has added value for our researchers, making it easier for them to populate our record and also to have these trust markers in their ORCID record.
So Pure was already a system that you had at your university. I think I'm going to share a link in the chat to our certified service providers list, because I think some folks may be surprised that a service that they already have is integrated with ORCID already, and all you have to do is turn it on. So it makes it really easy. So definitely check out that list. Some folks are asking questions about more of the specifics when it comes to the data that you're receiving. How do you count or monitor the ORCID quota, i.e. the percentage of the researchers of your institution having an ID? So how do you keep track of all of that information?
If I could go first, it's quite a in the first days before the ORCID member portal was there, it was quite we got the database from our IT division, and I had to really manually count, and it was a manual process. But now with the ORCID member portal, it's a bit easier to get the numbers and the statistics to watch the growth and stuff. But if we want to compare and see in which faculties those are that have integrated, etc., it's still a manual process with us, because I have to go in and look which faculty is that person, and then I make lists for the faculty librarians to follow up on their side if some of their researchers have not connected yet. But that I do only about once a year, but mainly because it's quite time intensive. Yeah, so that's basically what I can share.
University de Lorraine is with the ORCID member portal that is very easy to use, and also we have WAR ID for each of our research unit, and so I can have statistic per research unit and send to the head of the research units the list of the ORCID linked for general statistics of the university. And we can also have this information from our information system. And we can generate emails.
I use at Erasmus an export from Pure with all our all our researchers and their ORCID ID, and also their role and their school, and then I can generate statistics about uptake of the people who currently work at our university, and we use the ORCID member portal to find ORCID IDs that are not yet in Pure, and then we add them, and then we run the statistics. And we decided a couple of years ago, okay, that's the universe that we use as to get these statistics.
And then similarly, how do you count the publications that are being pushed and pulled through your repositories? Are you able to see the same kind of statistics and stuff?
For that number, we use the ORCID member portal, but it's just one number. So we don't know that for per school or per faculty or per researcher. We just only have the general number.
Our next question, Judith, is specifically for your process. how did you embed the need for an ORCID ID in the process by the researcher?
Oh, that's for the open book fund. Yeah, that's only it's not embedded in the publishing, because we don't know where the researcher will publish the open access book. So they will get a part of the book processing charges are paid from the fund. So it's mainly a fixed box. There's no exchange of data. We only check, does this person have an ORCID ID, or we ask, and that's it.
Pretty simple then. And then we have just a few minutes left. So my last question for all of you, whoever wants to answer, there's a lot of questions relating to like resources and how do you take on such a project with limited resources. So if you had just a few hours per month to dedicate to your ORCID efforts, what would be your top priorities for a maximum impact?
I'll ask Marie maybe also just to answer. We heard from Erasmus. They have sort of two people. Marie is sort of also our dedicated staff member for ORCID, but she's also supported and backed up by faculty librarians, of course, IT, scholarly communication staff, research support services staff, and that is a whole new department. Because first of all, in terms of limited resources, but it was strategic for us to do this because it links strategically to the university objectives in terms of ranking that they want to improve there. So for us, it was a strategic imperative for the institution. So the resources were made available for that reason. And I think, Marie, the one thing that you think that we could still do, because we do have some challenges. Yeah, maybe you could say what that is.
I'm not quite sure about that, but if I could just answer, the one thing that I think is the best for advocacy is always a direct email in someone's email box, inbox, and not via. We've just seen that has the best impact. So if we want to do a marketing campaign, then it needs to be a direct email to researchers' inboxes. But I'm not sure, Ellen, with improvements on our side, there's lots.
Sorry, I don't want us to take up the time, but I got some very nice ideas from, as I said, from the other two institutions.
Yes.
We had what was called, and I think, as you say, it is the communication. So dedicated is, here the other two institutions, they have monthly workshops that we for other initiatives, we had like ORCID Wednesdays. And then we have maybe also a coffee thing and so on. But it is, that we continuously just have to dedicate perhaps more time once a week or monthly, a dedicated time for students and researchers, and we can get some of that swag from Kimberly.
Yes.
That we can hand out.
Definitely.
I think you have to speak about ORCID in different ways, through different networks, from top-down or bottom-up strategy, and also don't hesitate to move through the research units and to talk to everyone, to have the relay, and to multiplicate the communication and to train other people.
And I think spending time in making sure you have an integration to have, so that researchers have the added value, and I think, and I'm not sure we have that correct, but having a one slide or one page thing that you can give to people, which explains ORCID in a few sentences, we spent some time on creating news paper newsletter items. It doesn't have to be very big, but just that the term ORCID appears in the newsletter. That's hopefully already that people think, hey, I need to do something.
Absolutely. I think these are all great high priority items. We are at the end of our time. So I do want to thank everyone, Ellen, Marie, Virginie, and Judith, for joining us today and imparting your wisdom upon all of us. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and we will follow up with the recording and all the materials from today's session. So thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.